In this video, we will see how you can manage your expenses in LSP.expert. You can manage your general expenses, like your internet connection, for example, but also your outsourcing expenses, when you outsource jobs to suppliers. About the general expenses, let's take the example of your internet connection and create an expense for that. In the menu, select Accounting and then Expenses. Click on Add an expense and give a name to your expense. To be able to get reports about your expenses, you have to assign what we call a label to your expenses. The internet connection will be under the general label, let's say. The due date field is to indicate when you have to pay the expense, but it applies more to outsourcing expenses, so we don't have to put any date here now, or you can put the date of your internet bill. You define the amount, of course, and the tax. And if you want, you can also add a note about the expense. When you click to validate, the system asks you if you would like to upload a document for this expense, so the receipt, for example, and you can upload it from Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, or your computer. After adding an expense, you can have a look at the expenses report under the report section in the main menu. It gives you a clear view of all your expenses, and you can filter based on the labels you assign to your expenses. Now, let's talk about the outsourcing expenses, so when you outsource jobs to suppliers and you have to pay these suppliers. We outsourced a job to our supplier Sophie Dupont, and if you want to know more about the outsourcing functionality, I invite you to have a look at our video about that. To see the outsourcing details of the job, click on the little outsourcing icon next to the job. When Sophie sends her job back, you can mark the outsourcing as finished by clicking on the status of the outsourcing. The system automatically asks you if you would like to create an expense for this outsourcing. Then, click on Add. In your list of expenses, you now see the outsourcing expense we just created. You can click on different items to access the job details or the supplier's details. You can also upload a receipt for this expense, in this case the invoice of the supplier when she sends it. The due date of the expense is calculated using the payment term defined at the supplier level. There is also a useful report about the outsourcing expenses. You will find it in the Reports tab. The Expenses by Supplier report shows all the expenses for each supplier for each month and in total. And that's it for the expenses.